All right, kids, we're back. We're doing another pig breakdown today, but I'm actually pretty excited about this one. These pigs actually came from a buddy of mine's farm that specializes in Ossobaw, island hogs, and Mangalitsa's. So you can go ahead and follow him on everything at Armstrong Acres. So these are a different customer's pigs, but he originally bought them from him, and I'm really excited about it because these were Ossobaw Mangalitsa crosses, which are exactly the same as Senor, my boar, who Carlisle from Armstrong Acres originally brought up from Georgia. So I'm pretty excited to look at the cuts, see what everything looks like, the marbling, because we're directly putting these type of genetics into our pigs. So I'm really excited to see that. I mean, you guys, if you watched the last pig video, you saw our Herefords, the marbling and the meat quality of them. So now we're gonna see what else is going into this batch of piglets that is coming in August. So we're gonna go ahead and do a full breakdown. I'm gonna try and pull you guys in a little bit more. Look at some of the specialty cuts. We'll get you over on the saw, see how that works. We have two of these pigs, and they are 50-50 boneless and bone-in. So this smaller one, we're gonna do all bone-in, and the bigger one, we're gonna do all boneless. So I'm not gonna show you like the entire breakdown of both pigs, but we're definitely gonna pull you in for different sections of it, of this is boneless, this is bone-in, this is how it looks, this is how you break it down. So I'm gonna go ahead, change the camera angle a little bit, and we're gonna get going. All right, so I took the picnic and the head. That was all gonna be grind. They're gonna be doing sausage out of that. So now I have the butt. So Ossobaws and Mangalitsa's are what is considered to be a lard breed. They pack on fat, and they do a really good job of it, and it's amazing quality. So as you can see, it's got a really nice fat cap on it, and the melting point of this fat is super low to the point that I can just do that and it's already starting to melt, as opposed to some of the more production breeds. The fat's a little hardier on them, but these guys are absolutely amazing. This customer is keeping all the fat to render everything down, and this is going to be roasts. They're going to be bone-in roasts on both pigs, so I'm just gonna do one little breakdown of them just to kind of show you guys. So we're gonna pop this neck bone out, these ribs, and we're gonna leave the shoulder blade intact. And like I said, we're gonna go through and we'll take this fat off, we'll save it, and we'll pull you guys in a little bit as we're doing it. What I'm doing is I'm just kind of cleaning up the back a little bit on this. I did wash it when we got home. This was a mobile slaughter. I don't do a lot of them, but this guy reached out and said all the nice things. So he was only about 40 minutes away. So we were able to just jump on down there and get these done for him really quick. These were slaughtered yesterday. I like to hang my pigs for a day. And if I hang them longer, it's no longer than 3. And if I'm hanging a pig for 3 days, that is because it is huge and it needs a little more time to set up. So what I'm gonna do is, we are gonna leave fat on this, obviously, because it'll help with flavor, but we're gonna go ahead and take the cap right off of this, because we don't need that much fat in the crock pot. I'll peel this down. There's a little bit of red there, but that's okay. We'll trim that up. Trim it off the fat and just toss it in the burger. And there's that. We also don't want the burger to be super fatty as well. Again, we do want some fat, but we want to have a manageable ratio, because I don't know how some people feel about this. You can have sausage that is too fatty. So I like to keep mine slightly on the leaner side. I like to go through as I'm doing it and just cut this into more manageable pieces. So whether you're gonna render all this whole like this, whether you have a grinder at home or a KitchenAid grinder, you can go through, freeze all this and grind it. If you looked back at my pork rendering video I put up, I kind of touched on that a little bit. I will do a more in-depth one. I just wanted to get something out to you guys. I was making lard, so I said, you know what, we'll just toss the cameras on. But there will be a more in-depth video on that. So I kind of touched on the last one, but this is a pretty good representation. If you're ever breaking down a whole pit or a whole butt like this, even sometimes if you can get pork butts on sale at the grocery store, I know up here they'll do sales every now and then that it's 99 cents a pound. If you look at it like this, right about dead set in the middle where this flap of meat comes up, and you peel that open, I don't know if you can see it, be a little bit closer. There is a gland right here. You're gonna know it if you bite into that. So it's pretty easy for you to just go in, scoop that gland out, toss it, you're good to go. I like to square this end up a little bit. A little bit of bone right there. All right, so now we deal with this. This is where your flex knife comes into play really well. I like to start right here, and then there are the feather bones right here that you can just go right under. We'll turn you around so you can see a little bit. Glide right under those ribs. And just peel it back. You want to always be feeling the bone with your knife. If you are not feeling the pressure of the bone on your knife, that means you're cutting into your meat. It's not always the worst, it's still gonna be delicious, but you're gonna have some funky looking cuts. All right, so clean that up a little bit, toss that. So now you are left with a whole semi-bone in pork butt. So, what we are going to do is I'm gonna pre-cut this. So now all that's left right in there is the shoulder blades. Grab our saw. We'll finish that. Scrape that up, get all the bone dust off. And this is why we raise these. If you look at that, The intermuscular fat is fantastic. It is insanely tender. And that is what I am trying to get into my stock, and I'm very excited about it. So we'll go ahead and toss these on the tray, and we will get back to it. So, as you can see again, there's a real solid fat cap on this, and then this is actually your suet. So the kidney is hidden in here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pop this suet out, so that way we can start breaking the rest of this down. And again, we'll be saving the suet. It makes fantastic lard. If you were raising a pig like this and not planning on making lard, I would highly suggest doing some research and figuring out how to, because again, this is some of the best lard you can possibly make because this fat is so rich. You can get your finger right in there and separate it from the loin itself. I did forget to peel this yesterday when I was tossing these in the cooler. So it does make it a little bit more difficult when you're doing it cold, but it's not impossible. Toss the kidney out of there. Again, this fat is so rich that it really doesn't have the same properties as if you were doing a Yorkshire or a Hereford or something like that. If you were doing this on one of those more production breed pigs, this section would still be soft, but not as soft as this. All right, so have that peeled out. So that is your leaf lard. Again, we're gonna go ahead and chunk this up a little bit. It'll make packing a little easier, and it'll make rendering a little bit easier in the end. All right, so all the fat's taken out of this. We're gonna just clean up this section a little bit. And this is going to be our bone-in section, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the tenderloin in, and we will split this. You can feel the end of the rib cage right here. This is the last bone. So I like to go, if you look at it, the end of the tenderloin is right here. So I like my cut to start here, but the way this loin works, and the way the tenderloin tapers down, you're gonna be right about here when you're splitting this plate. So we're just gonna do that. And I do not have the bandsaw plugged in, so we'll go ahead and do that. Gonna be a little loud for a second. While we had the bandsaw on, I also took the hock off the ham. Once again, these hams are gonna be, these ones are gonna be bone-in roasts because they're a little bit smaller. So first what we're gonna do is move all that stuff to the side a little bit. We're gonna get this belly section all set. So they are going to keep the spare ribs, and they are going to keep the bacon or the bellies to try their hand at bacon. So, what I like to do, again, you gotta find where the end of your rib cage is. At this point, it's more of a rib plate. So it sweeps up this way. You can kind of follow it on the skirt right here. And what I like to do is start up here with my blade almost all the way at the handle and just work my knife down until I get to the end of the rib cage. Then you can peel it back a little bit and do the exact same thing and just peel that all back. All right, so that is that. And we're going to toss him some spare ribs with that. Toss these in the crock pot, in the oven. Again, they're not huge on these, a little bit of a smaller pig, but you know what? It's meat and we're gonna pass it on. So we'll clean up this little piece right here. And all the rest of that is fat. So now what you were left with is a whole belly. What I like to do is come through and just start squaring everything up. A lot of that's fat, so we'll take that, pop that gland out. Again, you can kind of see there's another one of those glands. And we'll just square it up. It makes the process a lot easier in the end. Again, if you saw our bacon brining or belly brining video, you will see the outcome of doing all this. It makes everything a nice cleaner look. I like to look on the back, make sure there's no hair, no gouges and anything. The hard part about skinning these guys is, once again, their fat is so thick, and when they're hot like that, it is just jello. So skinning can get a little bit difficult on these guys. It just takes a little extra time to be consistent. All right, so that is a whole belly. And what we are going to do to make everything a little more manageable is cut it in half. It makes packing on my side a little more manageable and the brining process. So that is what those bellies look like. And they are going to be fantastic. They are fatty, but again, that's what you sign up for with a breed like this. That's what I've signed up for. Again, we're trying to, at least here with breeding in these genetics to our Herefords, is we're trying to make a better production breed that we can raise a little easier going into the winter. Winter's up here a little tough, and we are going to start raising winter litters. So I would like something that I can raise consistently over the winter that's not gonna lose a bunch of weight. So what I'm gonna do before I get into this, I'm gonna go ahead and move you guys so there's a little better camera angle, and we'll see you in a second. All right, so this hog is just gonna be grind, and this ham, like I said, is going to be roast. So what I'm gonna do, we'll get all this cleaned up, probably speed you up for a second, and we will catch you when we're done. All right, so we got these hams split. We were gonna cut them in thirds, but they're a little smaller than I thought they were going to, so we're just gonna do halves. And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna put a quick tie on them We'll make cooking a little easier. We'll take out a little bit more of this darker stuff. All right. All right, so now you got a couple nice bone-in hams. I toss them in the crock pot, toss them in the oven. Pretty much do just about anything with them once they're at this point. So, now for the fun one. We're gonna do bone-in pork chops on this. So we are just gonna jump right at it and get everything all trimmed up. I'll pop you over to the saw in a second and we'll get these things cut. All right, so that is the fat cap off of a loin off of one of these. To put it in perspective, this pig hang weight was 185. So that is quite a bit of back fat to come off the back of it. It is something you run into with this type of breed. Again, they were bred essentially for this. A lot of it is, especially if you look at the Ossobaws, they evolved on an island off the coast of Georgia, and they went through bouts of starvation and where there wasn't a lot of food. So they evolved to pack on as much fat as possible to help them through some of those harsher stretches. And same with the Mangalitsa. They just grow fat. But Carlisle over at Armstrong Acres has been doing some great stuff with some dietary planning and feed regimens to actually show that you can take some of these breeds that are considered lard breeds and only have about an inch fat cap on them with amazing marbling on the inside, on the intermuscular meat. Again, the intermuscular meat on this is absolutely fantastic. So what we are going to do, I'll toss this on the tray and I will move you guys, I'll clean up this loin a little bit more before I toss it on the saw, but the next time you see me, we're gonna be on the saw. All right, kids, we're back. So what we're gonna be doing on this side is the customer would like boneless ham roasts and boneless pork chops. A little tip that I like to do, especially if you have more than one pig that you're processing, and they do want bone-in and boneless cuts, this was the bigger of the two pigs. So what I like to do is make the bigger one the boneless, because you're gonna end up with close to the same amount of meat that you would with the smaller one being bone-in. So what we're gonna do is I probably won't time lapse all of it. I'll probably time lapse trimming it up a little bit and getting it ready. And then I'll show you how I bone these out. So we'll get right into it. All right, so we have this ham all trimmed up. So what we're going to do is, if you look right here, this is the H-bone, so essentially the pelvis. So we're gonna pop this oyster steak out. That's just gonna go into grind because of the size. And then we will pop the femur out. So this is, again, where your flex knife comes into place. You can kind of just follow the inside of that pelvis bone. And then if you look, you can see the separation in the pelvis and the femur. So what I like to do is start right about there and just follow it all the way around. I'll come back around on the other side. Now there is a small tendon that is attaching the pelvis to the femur itself, and once you nick that, the whole thing comes apart real easy. I'll show you that in 1 second. So if you look right there, that little tendon actually attaches to the femur bone right here. So as soon as you pop that out, everything comes loose. So when I debone hams, this has the kneecap still in place, and this is the bottom part of the femur. So what I like to do, you can see where that membrane is, where that tip is. So what I like to do, start my knife and just follow that membrane up, open it up, come around on the other side, and then clean that up right there, and just follow the bone around. And as you do it, I like to push everything off. You're gonna leave that kneecap on the ham itself. And then go underneath, pull this bone back. And then you have bone out, and then you have a nice boneless roast, or a whole boneless ham. Clean that up a little bit. Toss that there. So right there is the kneecap. We're just gonna come back in, pop around that. There you go. So now you have a whole boneless ham. I'm gonna trim that chunk up a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead, give this a quick tie, and we'll cut it in half, and that will be our boneless ham roast. All right, so there are your boneless ham roasts. Again, the color on these is absolutely incredible. So now we have our loin. So once again, I'm just gonna time lapse this a little bit, get this all cleaned up, and once we are at the point of boning it out, I will pull you guys back in. Okay, so we are back. First thing, what we are going to do is pull this tenderloin out. This is super easy. You can see where the pelvis starts, right up here. This is your pork tenderloin. So all I do, start at that pelvis bone and just keep my knife right against the spinal cord, and you can basically just peel it out. A couple minor cuts just to loosen everything up. And cleaning it up is super simple as well, because we've already pulled the suet and everything out of there, so now everything is just a little bit easier to handle. All right, so there's that. Now for the fun stuff. What I like to do is first pull this pork sirloin off. So again, this is the rest of your H bone. And you can see right here where the bone and the meat stops. So what we're gonna do, pop the knife in right there, open it up, come around this side, get the rest of that oyster out, and just kind of open that one up too. And just slowly move down it. Try not to gouge into the meat. Keep your blade pointed down towards the bone. So there's your pork sirloin. And then what I like to do is pop this bone off, makes life a little bit easier. You can follow on the inside right there, pop it. And just clean up what you can off of it. Again, this all is going into sausage and it's all delicious. So, now you have the main loin left. What I like to do is go in first and make sure that there's no shoulder blade left, which that is the last of that. When I'm doing boneless like this, I'll do baby back ribs. I'll give the customer baby back ribs. So what I like to do is leave the tail actually on the ribs themselves. So if you look, that's the end of your rib cage. So what I like to do, make a cut right here and just score it all the way across. Then come back around and score right behind all these feather bones. So then what you can do, run your knife right over the top of those ribs. And just peel down as you go until you hit that score. Peel this the rest of the way out. Then what you can do, run your knife right along the edge of where that spine is. Snap that right off. Trim whatever you can out of this spinal cord. Toss that. Run over to the saw real quick. Now, you've got a little rack of baby backs with some fat and some meat on there. Do it up on the smoker, crock pot, you can do whatever you want with that. Again, it's not a huge amount of meat, but you know what? It's gonna be delicious no matter what you do. So, it's just a nice little add-on. So we'll go ahead and toss that there. So now what we're left with a whole boneless loin. We'll come over here. Trim that up. And this customer would like 1.25 inch chops. So, gotta get a hold of everything. It was a little greasy. Square up that end, and then just cut your chops. These are all your loin chops. You have a little more fat on your rib chops because that's just the nature of the beast on them, and it doesn't make much sense to cut it off because then you're losing all that flavor. And And then, last but not least, we'll trim this up a little bit. Square it up. You can usually expect around, depending on the size of the animal, 3 sirloin chops. So when I say these guys are my favorite when it comes to pork chops, that's the reason. Just fantastic color on them, good flavor, super tender. Definitely an underutilized pork chop. So that is how you bone out a pork loin. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead, finish up everything that goes along with this side and the other side, and you guys know the drill. I'll pop you back in when we are packaging everything and everything's all packed up so you can see the finished result. All right, kids, we're back. So this is the finished product, all tossed in the freezer. As you can see, there is quite a bit of back fat. I didn't end up weighing it, but we had, I think, 15 packages, and each pack is about 4 to 5 pounds. So there's quite a bit of back fat. Again, the bellies came out really nice. Again, a little fatty, but it's gonna brine out nice, make some really nice bacon. Just to show you the difference, again, on bone-in and boneless. Beautiful chops. Again, the boneless pig was a little bit bigger. Like I said, when you take something like that and you have 2, I suggest taking the smaller one and turning it into a bone-in chop, and the bigger one and turning it boneless. Because there was a 20-pound discrepancy, or 20-pound difference on those pigs, and the chops are very similar size when they're boned out. So you're just gonna get a little more for what you're looking for on that. Again, all the different roasts and everything. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, these freezers are awesome. These are the freezers that have the Freon running through the shelves. All of this should be frozen by tomorrow around noon. Once I turn you guys off, I'm gonna get going. I'm trying to get sausage ground tonight so the customer can pick up tomorrow. But after that, we're going inside, but I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next time.